Hello and welcome to Arts 24. Today we're talking about a film that's making cinema history. Dreams of Violets is the first fully AI-generated feature film to be selected by a major international festival. The film is a 75-minute drama about Iran's crackdown on anti-government protesters that swept Tehran in January. It was made by one person at home in London in 3 months for €2,000. And it'll premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival in New York next week. Joining us now from London is the film's Iranian-British director, Ash Koosha. Welcome to Arts 24. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, this is a fictional drama inspired by the events in Tehran in January. At what moment did you say you had to make this film?
Thanks for having me. So first and foremost, my background is I've lived in Iran. I grew up in Iran, and I had first-hand experience seeing the brutality and then the decay of the country over the last decades post-revolution. So I also have a background in AI technology and media. And when the January protests happened, for me, it was the moment to express myself. And I'm often not very political, but the events were so incredibly important. I think for me personally, and to a lot of people, that I wanted to use the technology to amplify the voices of those people involved, the victims of those few nights of blackout and brutality and violence in Iran. And I think for me, the bottom line of this project at the moment was that I'm going to tell a story and make sure 50 years from now, when people look back at the first AI film or whatever technology used here, they're going to have to listen to those voices again. They're going to have to again and again repeat the voices used in this film, the images, the events, and remember these people. And I think that's the only thing that I could offer.
And Ash, you've said this film would have been impossible to make conventionally. Can you explain the reasons why it wasn't possible?
Well, the main thing is to be able to travel to those places, to capture footage and locations, people, props, the weapons, the soldiers, to tell the stories around those events. The only thing available was the real footage, and the real footage is not really what we can show to the global audience, right? So I think the technology comes in here and gives us the ability to recreate and give a new perspective at a very high quality.
So $2,000, a laptop, a few months' work from your living room, no actors, no sets. Let's take a look at the film.
Reza. میدونستید بنفشه تنها گلیه که تو تاریکی رشد میکنه؟ ریشش نور نمیخواد، فقط یه ترک میخواد، یه شکاف تو زمین، همین.
زنین مامان، پا نشی باز بری بیرون، تو رو خدا، جون بابات، نرو، تو رو خدا نرو.
اگر آزاد شد خوشحالی کن به جا من جامو رو خالی کنی.
So Ash, the film follows 5 strangers who meet in Tehran in an alleyway before they're executed. All of this is witnessed by a 10-year-old boy watching from a window. Why did you want him to be the person who witnesses this story?
I think it speaks to first the next generation is witnessing all this stuff and doesn't have as much context as we do. So that innocence of not being even involved with all of this, so the economic decay of that country, right? It's not their fault. And when I speak to my parents, right, they were at the core of the revolution, watching that change happen. But the new generation doesn't know that. And you know, that inability to have a voice, I think, is what comes here. And I wanted to create an arc of change of a new generation that's just not a part of the fight.
And Ash, this is a very personal film for you. Artists in Iran face enormous pressure and persecution. The Iranian filmmaker Jafar Panahi, and 2025 Palme d'Or winner for It Was Just an Accident, recently condemned the regime's treatment of protesters, and he now faces renewed legal pressure after already being jailed. You yourself left Iran in 2009 after being imprisoned and then forced into exile after organising a music festival. How much of your own experience of Iran shaped this film?
I used to be a musician in Iran and very active until we got prosecuted for no reason. It's just like an unfair treatment, and still it exists, and I think it's gotten worse. And for artists like Jafar Panahi, I think, I really admire the courage that these artists have. And I think each one of us, we're civilians. We have to not remember, we are all civilian artists, right? So we choose the strength that we have, each one of us. My strength is in what I'm doing, and his strength is what he's doing. But all of that leads to giving the civilians more voice and amplifying the broader stories of Iranian people. And I think that's the wave that has happened for decades now, and I've been involved in it in Iran. And it has a lot of impact on me as well when artists like that still in Iran risk their lives.
And you've said already that you've thought every day, every minute of every day, about the ethical questions raised by making an AI-generated film about people who actually died. What was the hardest ethical question you had to answer for yourself?
Well, the hardest ethical question is, in fact, using those people, right? Because I just saw one of the people that had created a photo, and I was inspired by that photo in the film. He just got a 10-year sentence for just taking that photo and sharing it, right? So I think I'm kind of getting more news and more confirmation that it was correct to use an artificial means or a computer graphics technology to be able to tell the story. And I think this is a one-off. This is a very unique circumstance. The ethical questions around AI is obviously around the jobs, economy, replacing people. And I am actually against those notions. So I don't think AI will have to come in and just replace all storytelling. I think it's going to be made, and it's going to progress towards a genre of films that are just impossible. And it's our job to find those notions and those excuses to make these prove. So we are in experimental stage, and I've committed to basically answering those questions, the harder questions.
And some people will argue, of course, that using AI to recreate real suffering risks distorting history, especially when we depict politically sensitive events that remain contested and very difficult to verify. Why do you believe that remembrance outweighs that risk?
First of all, this is not a documentary. We've been very candid about that. This is a docudrama. The drama being emphasized is that it's my take on an aggregate of events that has happened to me and others I know, first and foremost. And there are parts where we had to, this is the responsibility of me, going out and verifying that, for example, there is a video of a scene that has been shared over 1 million times across different places. Some of them tens of millions of times, right? So, and there are organizations like Amnesty International who have extensively written about the events. So I agree, there's a notion of propaganda, and there's a notion of using these technologies to amplify a voice that some people don't like, or it's been used. And I'm not a politician. I don't belong to a political class. I don't care about the political structures. I care about the civilian events. And I think that's why this is very personal. It's almost like every filmmaker's product is personal. And why I wanted to do it in my own space with my own budget, very quietly, was to be able to tell that story myself.
And Tribeca is the first major festival to embrace a fully AI-generated feature. The co-founder, Jane Rosenthal, said what moved her about Dreams of Violets was not the technological achievement, but what she called the film's emotional immediacy and urgency. Critics, however, argue that AI-generated films lack emotional depth. Are you getting a lot of backlash for this film?
Yes, and I think the backlash mainly comes from not knowing what's in the film. And I think most people should watch the film first. The video element of the film is generated. The rest of it is my creation, right? The script, the dialogues. I've done the voice acting myself. I've edited the film. I've made the music myself. I've made the sound and mixed the sound and colored the film. So this is the job of like 8-10 people already that I had to do myself, take the pressure. And it was quite a painful process. So I think the backlash is valid. I actually sometimes sympathize more with the backlash because I understand the blind fear that has been proposed by the AI industry. I think it's valid to be afraid. And I think if people know how much the human was in charge here and not the AI, maybe this is going to be a new window of discussion and maybe a bit of a relief for people who are scared. AI can help a lot, but it's never going to replace the human core element. And I tried to convey those emotions, and I think that's what Tribeca saw in the film.
And Ash, just before we go, we recently learned of the death of Iranian artist Marjan Satrapi. She created the best-selling graphic memoir and award-winning film Persepolis that brought the experience of growing up during Iran's revolution to audiences around the world. Much like your film, it was an attempt to preserve memories and tell a story that might otherwise have been lost. Do you see her work as part of a tradition that you're continuing?
Yeah, it's a devastating news. I woke up to it today, and it's just really sad. I'm personally very inspired and influenced by her work, and Marjan's work is, I think, monumental. It's one of those things that will last, I think, globally. I know a lot of non-Iranian people, maybe even more than Iranian people, that love her work, and it's traveled so well. And I think the reason for that, again, is the same approach, which is the lens of the civilian, the real emotions of people, the humor, the darkness, all together, and telling the human stories. And she was the master of this. And forever I will be thankful for her work, and I pay respect to her for doing that and inspiring all of us to learn from her storytelling.
Ash Koosha, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Dreams of Violets premieres at the Tribeca Film Festival on the 10th of June. Thank you so much for watching, and we're going to leave you then with a clip from Marjan Satrapi's Persepolis. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Au lit, tout de suite.
Marjan, ce n'est pas un comportement digne d'une future prophète.